Afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Community and Economic Development Committee. Will you please take the roll?
Present.
Here.
Here.
Here. Thank you. The first item we have is a review of the work plan, and we are requesting that we defer Modern Income Housing Strategy Status Report to May 19th City CED meeting.
Second.
Do we have any community members who wish to discuss that?
No, we do not.
I heard a motion and a second.
I'll move to defer that item.
Second.
Great. Any discussion? If not, let's vote. Great, thank you. Moving to the reports to our committee, the first report is Team San Jose, the semi-annual status report. And we have a whole contingent of people from Team San Jose. And before we begin, I just want to acknowledge that this is Nancy Klein's last meeting with CED. She's retiring. I hate to use that term. She's moving on to whatever next chapter in her life is, because she's too young to be retiring. There you go. I wish you well and have truly enjoyed working with you all the 6+ years that I've been here, and even knocking on your door when I ran for city council and having a very interesting conversation with you before you disclosed you were a city council member or a city staffer. That was fun. You remember that, I'm sure.
I do.
I just want to thank you for your professionalism, for always responding to us with dignity and grace, and even sometimes when we're maybe asking questions that you're not ready to answer for us, you're always graceful on how you do answer them. So thank you so much. We're going to miss you.
Thank you.
But I'll see you in the neighborhood.
Without a doubt. With that, I just wanted to mention or say very much appreciative of getting to be here today to talk about Team San Jose. So much has been going on with Team San Jose, and there's a lot still going on, but a lot of it is really great. Not to mention, got to start with the obvious, with the fantastic work that Team San Jose has done with GTC. It was stellar, great partners with parks, OEDCA, DOT, but as usual, Team San Jose was at the heart, and it was a very positive, and Jensen said 10 minutes into his keynote, how do we grow and stay here? That's a real tribute to the things that are going right. And what you're going to see in the presentation is a lot of collaboration that Council requested in June and that Team San Jose has dived into. So you'll already see the strong benefits. And you'll already see that there's more work to be done between Team San Jose and Downtown Association, working on a joint dashboard to show you metrics that are integrated so that they can be a cohesive look for council and also for staff. With that, I'll turn it over to the one and only John LaFortune.
Thank you very much, Nancy. I appreciate it. And good afternoon, committee members. I'd like to start by first thanking you all for supporting and understanding Team San Jose's unique model that we have with our two contracts. And again, they're the Convention Visitors Bureau, the CVB you'll hear, and that's our sales and marketing arm. And the second is the management of the city-owned facilities. And last week, as Nancy mentioned, we hosted NVIDIA, and this model proved to be greatly beneficial. The model allows us to be a one-stop shop, which increases revenues, and clients only have to deal with one point of contact. The numbers from NVIDIA are not out yet, but they will be soon. But I can say this year was much bigger than last year, and we're already going to start working on 2026 NVIDIA. So after they all take their vacations in NVIDIA, well-deserved, we take over the next week and we start to get that signed for the next contract. So we're really excited about that. Today we have the team here to discuss our mid-year numbers through December, and then the two recent addendums that Nancy also mentioned. One, to lead a collaborative marketing group, and two, to reach out to our business partners twice a year. And I feel, and I've spoke to a few of you about this, is I feel both of these new addendums have really made Team San Jose more relevant and more visible throughout the committee. So let's start it off with Laura, who's going to talk a little bit about our collaborative marketing group. And again, I just want to thank Nancy for all she's done over the years with Team San Jose. It's been invaluable, so thank you.
Thank you, John. And again, thank you, Nancy, for everything, for years of support. You'll be missed every day. Okay, so everybody saw at their seats, or I hope you did, what we left was an example of what we do in digital ads. So I want you to, if you don't mind, please take a look when you have time at the Visit California Visitor Guide. This is their annual visitor guide. It'll go out to 1 million people. Will see this. It will be anybody who gets Travel and Leisure will have a copy of this mailed to their house. You'll see a special article on food throughout California, and in the middle of it all, you'll see the delicious pineapple curry recipe by Chef Cheney Lau from Anchor Chef. And then next to that, you'll see an article on all the diverse ways to shop for food and culinary experiences in San Jose, highlighting 6 or more of our neighborhoods. When you look at their road trips guide, I hope you'll be pleased to see in the 3rd page, a journey into San Jose's historic Almaden Valley. Because San Jose hasn't had money in market telling our stories for a long time, we use these placements to educate people on our destination and all the things there is to do. So all those NVIDIA people who came in, we try to get them to bring their families and extend their stay in California. Okay, so let's talk about collaborative. Thank you, and of course, as John and Nancy just said, this was something added to our contract in July. I'm pleased to report that since then, we've already had 4 meetings with initial partners. These partnerships will grow to include partners from throughout the council districts. Initial partners are San Jose State University, San Jose Downtown Association, OED, the Office of Cultural Affairs, the Mayor's Office, and of course our friends at the airport at SJC. When we first got together, we all agreed that we would share all our marketing channels. That's all our websites, all our social media, all our digital billboards on the sides of our buildings where applicable. And we would look to identify an editorial calendar that would look at campaigns where we could share a brand and sing the same message together. I'm pleased to announce that after just a few months, we launched the first shared campaign, and that was a very San Jose holiday. Next slide, please, Ben. Importantly, this was also the first time Team San Jose marketed San Jose to locals, and we had very good results from that. Next slide, please. So through these 5 partners, and everybody telling people to come downtown, go to Enchant, tour the neighborhoods, looking at the pretty lights, and definitely don't forget to eat and drink champagne. Drink champagne, sorry. Gosh, that was Freudian. Anyway, we saw San Jose residents increase by 23%, and for something that is a tradition in San Jose, that's a significant growth. We're very pleased about that. When council directed us to spend on locals for locals, we wanted to make sure that we weren't in any way hurting the revenue we were driving to hotels. The great news here is that downtown hotels during that same time period increased occupancy year over year by 42%, and revenue per available room, which is really how hotel partners deal with understand how much money they're making, grew by 48%. So talking to locals and getting them to move around San Jose paid off really well. I also want to let you know that everything we're doing with these collaborative campaigns will be leading to us singing together, sharing the same branding for 2026. So it's all to get ready for that. Thank you.
Good afternoon, committee. Great to see you. For the record, Ben Roschke, Vice President of Research and Strategic Development, hiding behind the wall here. As John mentioned, our other new addendum to the contract was to increase our outreach to local businesses to help them learn how they could better team up with Team San Jose and leverage us to really break into the experience economy. We hosted, if you'll recall, those of you that were on the committee, our first semi-annual hospitality, first biannual summit for hospitality, or BASH, in September. We had our second one in February and saw great growth over it. We grew attendance to over to 177 attendees from 100 in the first one. And importantly, we launched industry pages for the business community. So they have 24/7 access to Team San Jose research, access to information about upcoming events through our 60-day calendar and event resumes, and then also how to reach out to Laura's marketing team, Matthew's sales team, to really leverage all the opportunities within the experience economy and work better with Team San Jose. Big thanks to Vice Mayor Foley and Councilmember Mulcahy for coming out and helping us out at the BASH, and we look forward to continuing this program. Important to note that overall our partnership network, or email list of business partners, has grown largely through these efforts and also through our own efforts, from 189 at the beginning of the fiscal year to now over 450. So we are growing our reach with the local business community and look forward to continuing this process. Thank you. And I turn it over to Nancy for this next one. Thank you.
When we came to see you before and we were talking about targets, Jim Shannon, pretend he's here, shared this particular side, and we thought it was important to bring back. The budget with Team San Jose is somewhat challenging next to our budget, in that we ask for numbers and must have numbers before our budget season is through. They, at Team San Jose, have an ever-changing situation, either with folks who are signing up or folks who are canceling. So big swings can happen in the course of a year. And in terms of how to get the targets Goldilocks just right, we don't want to overshoot the target, because if the target is much higher than we thought, the city funds backfill that target. So we don't want to create a more difficult budget situation for the city. But that's why occasionally you will see 200% of goal, say, in some of these things, where there's good logic for that. It's just not intuitive based on the way we have done our budgeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Ihab Sabri, CFO of Team San Jose. Good afternoon. I'm going to present the financial performance measures for fiscal year 2024 through December 2024. The first item, estimated direct visitor spending. The actual number was $31.9 million compared to a goal of $29.4 million. And we have a positive variance of $2.6 million. The reason of having that positive variance, that we had significant increase for one of the groups in October, and exceeded our projection by far. We also had a couple of Broadway shows. We had a lot of success with those two shows. One was in September, and the other one was in November. The next item is future hotel room nights booked in Citywide. We had 58,000 room nights, and we're a little short against the goal by 167 room nights. Basically, those room nights are booked for the current fiscal year and also for future fiscal year. And Matthew, you want to add some color to that?
Thank you. Welcome. It's good to be here always. When we say booked room nights, we're talking about contracted future groups. So it could be for a month from the point of signature to several years. I'll explain a little bit later in the presentation when a booked room night becomes a consumed room night.
Thank you, Matthew. Theater occupancy, 94%. We're 9% actually short of budget. The main reason for that is we had a 14-day show, international show basically got canceled. They could not bring the equipment to the United States. So that was a huge impact, negative impact basically to our theater occupancy. As a matter of fact, that show was actually impacting 6 different venues across the country. The next item is gross operating revenue, $22.6 million compared to $22.6 million. Yeah, it's about this. It's almost flat to budget. However, we had a shortfall of $48,000. We had some canceled group in September, and basically it impacted our numbers for gross operating revenue. The same group actually impacted our gross operating results positively by $1.3 million. We collected cancel fee, and this cancel fee was 100% profit. And the 100% profit actually went all the way to the bottom line. So that's why we had $1.3 million positive impact against budget. Customer satisfaction was 93% compared to 95% goal. We had a shortfall of 2%, and the main reason for that, we had 2 negative or fair customer surveys, and one of them actually was because we had the event in South Hall in the hottest day of August, basically. The AC was not strong enough, basically, to carry and cool down the South Hall. So we had a markdown on our customer survey. What we did in turn, we submitted our capital for fiscal year 25-26, and we requested upgrade of the AC, the air conditioner, of the South Hall. And the good news is through February, we are actually 95% or at target compared to budget. So far, so good in the customer satisfaction. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a quick update. We also present sort of a quick snapshot of what we're seeing from the overall hotel economy. Important because we pay close attention to the revenue figures as that correlates directly to the transient occupancy tax that goes into both Team San Jose operations, but also the general fund and Office of Cultural Affairs budgets. What we've seen starting at the beginning of the calendar year for 2024 was a real acceleration in year-over-year growth of a couple key indicators, revenue and then revenue per available room, which are really sort of the 2 statistics we look at that track the health of the hotel economy. This growth was driven really by accelerating performance in downtown. As we know, downtown was a little slower in recovering coming out of the pandemic, but it really started to take off in January. Through the first 6 months of fiscal year, what we've seen is that actually in our competitive set of 13 Western markets, we've been leading in the revenue year-over-year growth and revenue per available room year-over-year growth against all the competitive set. And specifically when other cities in the Bay Area have been falling behind year over year. And that's really been driven by really strong performance downtown. Our outlook, we're still continuing to see that rapid growth downtown, but there's been a little more volatility outside of the downtown market around the airports and greater San Jose hotels. And that matches up with some national trends from what we've seen in terms of hotel class, where more full service, upper upscale properties that are downtown have been performing better, while there's been more volatility with limited service hotels, which tend to be outside of the downtown core. So we're continuing to keep an eye on it, but remain cautiously optimistic as we move forward for the rest of the fiscal year.
Good afternoon again, and welcome to the new members of the committee. Earlier in the presentation, we talked about booked room nights. We're talking about group business, and those are contracts. The groups have not arrived at that point. At the end of every calendar year, we do take a look back at the consumed room night total. And a consumed room is when someone has arrived in the city and actually stayed in the hotel. So it's when that contract comes to fruition. So in the full calendar year of 2024 versus 2023, we consumed 14% more rooms in the city. Some of these are groups that would fit just in one hotel, and some of these are groups that use multiple properties like we saw last week. So 14% is a step in the right direction, but we still have a long way to go to reach what we would call our optimal level of room nights. We've talked on past occasions about some of the challenges we have with citywide business as far as being an attractive destination when you have multiple smaller hotels rather than a couple of very large hotels or even a headquarters hotel. So what we've done is we've developed some tools to mitigate the work for a customer to choose San Jose. The first one is our downtown availability calendar. So I have received from each of the main hotels downtown what their availability is from now through the end of 2026. And I have put them on one calendar so that when we get an opportunity in this window, we can very easily see where the availability is and then steer a customer towards those dates. So often, this speed to market with a proposal can determine who gets the business and who doesn't. And if we're looking at something in this window, it's really important for us to know with some degree of certainty or likelihood that availability is there. One of the challenges also is signing multiple contracts and having to negotiate with 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 hotels because they need all of those to participate. So we're working, and it's almost ready for launch, on a citywide contract where all of the legal jargon, all 17 or 18 pages of it, will be the same for every hotel. So the customer only has to go through once with their legal department and do that. And then each hotel participating would have a one-page addendum. So this will dramatically lessen the work involved, which is part of the issue. And certainly if we're looking at the Hilton, the Marriott, the Signia, if they're satisfied with the language, then really what does anybody else need that they wouldn't have? So we're excited about this, and Laura's already thinking about how we're going to market this because it is a huge benefit to the customer when we can introduce this. And then since our inventory is more limited downtown, we often have to use uptown. And so we've put together, you can see the map up here, we are pre-packaging the availability uptown for a customer. So what this would mean is if I know that I need another 500 rooms, there will be a peak column to the right on this map that will tell the customer where they can get those rooms and where the shuttle stops are, because we often run transportation up there. So again, and when people realize that uptown is only 10 minutes away from downtown, it becomes easier. But we're excited about this as well because we've had more growth uptown post-pandemic than downtown. And so there are a lot of hotels up there that are anxious to be able to participate in our business in a way that they weren't able to before. So thank you.
Hi, it's me again. So when I'm not helping Matthew by marketing to meeting planners, we're adding hotel rooms any way we can. What you're looking at right now is a snapshot of my dashboard for paid media only. So our marketing channels, of course, are owned media like our website, earned media like what we get placed in newspapers and in broadcast, social media, which we generate and buy ads on, and paid media. So paid media, what you see in front of you, the print ad, is the only consumer print ad we actually do. Paid media allows us to target to what I call travel intenders or digital intenders. So you've all seen it before. When you go on the internet and you search something, I'm buying your search terms. And if you're searching for flights or hotels in San Jose, I am buying placement of one of my ads in front of you. Now, very interesting is I'm also buying my ability to see how and when you purchase what I want you to purchase. So everything you're seeing here were people, real people. This is math. This is not multipliers. This is not a magic formula. All of these people were served our ads and converted, paid their actual dollars, and I get to count those dollars. So this is for the first 6 months of the first fiscal year. What I want to point out is in the second column, second section, hotel bookings, those are not rooms or numbers of bookings, right? That's one booking with one credit card, because that's how I'm buying the data. So, and again, I should throw in, this is audited by not one, but 3 separate non-affiliated audit firms to make sure it's correct. So when we multiply the hotel bookings by average length of stay, which is 3.6 days for a consumer, that's an additional 110,000 hotel rooms we sold in the last 6 months based on our media campaign, right? People who saw our ads. And that was 13,000 flight bookings. And the hotel and flight revenue from that was $30 million, well, 30.6 in the last 6 months. So as a nonprofit, we thank you for letting us do this. And we'll be happy to take any questions. Thank you very much.
And I just want to add one thing. As you listen to this, there are a number of highlights. But we as a team know we've got a lot more to do on a number of fronts to build on local and regional, to make sure we're honing our work with our other groups much more closely together. As we've just begun, we need to continue. And that the numbers that you see are very cyclical. We can't assume that growth will continue. So taking an analytical approach to that and trying to get out ahead and be strategic, especially in light of the major events that are coming our way. And that, I believe, we finished our presentation and welcome your questions.
Great, thank you. Do we have any members of the public who wish to speak? We do not. Then moving on to my colleagues, Councilmember Ortiz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank Team San Jose and, of course, Nancy Klein for their great work on this report. It's exciting to see those numbers and hear how the marketing efforts of Team San Jose is directly resulting in these purchase power going into our downtown and people coming in and enjoying our city. I wanted to ask, so are these numbers that you're showing specifically regarding the hotel usages and consumers, is that data limited to just downtown, or is that the entire city?
For my marketing, it's the entire city.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's great. And then I was just gonna say then, like, how does your work expand outside of downtown? Are you marketing other like hotels, or I know we got the Mexican Heritage Plaza as a venue. How are you making sure that your efforts are citywide?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the question. So as you can see in the ads that were placed in front of you, it's important that I do 2 things, right? I leverage the attendees that Matthew is bringing in, right? I want to give them a reason to bring their family and a reason to extend their stay. And that means the wonderful things that are happening throughout all of San Jose, right? The wineries, the distilleries, the global dining in every one of our neighborhoods. So what we do is we direct them to our website. We run a series of campaigns that highlight these things, especially Global Culinary is delivering us in huge ways. So we direct them there, and then we highlight partners on a rotating basis there. We're also, and I could talk about this all day, so forgive me, we're also always looking to leverage Visit California and their partnerships. They'll send down journalists who write in national travel publications. We work on our own efforts on national travel publications and consumer publications to facilitate visitation to these places. So that helps a great deal too. So I think the importance of BASH, the Biannual Summit on Hospitality, is critical when addressing this. If you have businesses in your districts who are not yet working with us, we met 10th Street Distillery at the very first BASH. Didn't know the best whiskey in the world was made in Japantown, right? Launched the San Jose Sour, helped him get national and global media around what he's doing. I hope that answers your question.
No, that's great. So then if I went to your site, I would be able to see like posts or, some sort of acknowledgement to restaurants and happenings across the city?
Absolutely, and our social media channels.
Okay, all right, I'll be looking forward to
Thank you.
check that. And then you talked about the hospitality event that you guys are doing, very exciting. How are we, like, I know that, I'm thinking on the east side, right, we got so many Portuguese halls, right? How are we, bringing them to the table for those discussions? How are we, hospitality, I always think of catering. How are, I guess, restaurants informed, I'm just thinking like Taiwan on Lincoln, how are they informed? How is China Inn and Winchester Avenue? How would they know about this work and how to get involved?
Fortunately, we have a community engagement director. Her name is Nicole Danya. Nicole,
yes, I know Nicole.
And I and Ben all go to neighborhood meetings and speak with the neighborhood business districts to tell them about our newly launched industry pages and how best to work with us. We do site visits. We rely in large part, because we're still building our team back after COVID, we rely in large part on your help and the help of your offices to highlight things. There are influencers in our city that we work with on a daily basis to say what's new, what's going on, what do we have to talk about now. For our dear friends in the Little Portugal neighborhood, we became very early and very dear friends with the Carrera family.
Okay.
And so work closely with them, hopefully help them achieve best wine restaurant in the world several years ago, and working with them again, hopefully more Michelin stars coming this year. We're also, I'm a part of the Visit California Food and Beverage Task Force.
Oh, really? Okay.
So we look to leverage our amazing global culinary on a state level too. And if you ever want to talk more about it, please just.
Sure, I'd love to maybe, bring Nicole out to have a discussion at our local business association, connect the dots there. So we'll definitely follow up with you in regards to that. And then I know that you were talking about your marketing, specifically your digital and your printing marketing, and then you had the number that you showed, I think it was 30 million, I think, of, I guess, transactions in downtown, dollars coming to downtown. How are you able to connect specifically from your social media to those transactions?
I can only do it through social media ads placed where I'm actually buying the data. So you will search for, honestly, through Alexa or through Google or through Bing, you'll search for travel in California. And all of a sudden, you'll be highlighted, and you will be served one of my ads. When you look at one of my ads, you will be, I'm putting cookies, essentially, on all your electronic devices across all your platforms. And then on the other end, what I'm doing is I'm buying Visa and American Express data to track that conversion. I'm buying data from Marriott, I'm buying data from Hilton, so they prove, and these people work together, right, to sell me, that's how they all make money. To sell me this ability to track real dollars through advertising.
And just so that I know, the $30 million that you showed us, is that directly tracked by you, or is that just in total of the money that have been brought to downtown San
It's
Jose?
tracked through the agency I work with that places the ads.
Okay, all right.
But they are audited by 3 separate groups to
So they
make sure
kind of
those
showed their
numbers are
work and said, this is how we presented it? Okay, all right, that's good for me to know. I wanted to make sure, like, were we just compiling all the dollars that were generated, or were we actually connecting them to the ads that we were putting out there? But no, sounds good. I'm excited about this. And then I guess they accept the report, right? I'll move to accept the report.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Mulcahy.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Team San Jose, thank you for the report. It's sort of odd sitting at this side of the table from you, but it's been a great thrill of my life to be involved with Team San Jose since its founding. And just a few things I wanted to sort of ask and a couple things to point out. Ehab, I think would be helpful as you're talking about, where we've done well, like the 2 shows you named as Broadway winners. Tell us what those names are because, people here are ambassadors too, and, we may have heard of a show that, did well, or somebody went and saw it, and maybe it didn't perform so well at the box office, but it was good for San Jose. So some of those details might be helpful. And then, of course, the one that canceled, especially because it was a nationally canceled program that did affect the numbers. So just something to think about in future
Sure.
delivery.
The Broadway shows, first one was Frozen. The other one was Coming Away.
Come From Away
Come
and
From
Frozen.
Away, yeah.
Yeah.
Frozen and Come.
And what was the one that didn't perform here?
No, they actually all performed well.
You said there was a show that canceled for 2 weeks.
Oh, that was international show. And then, do you have the name of this?
That's all right.
Yeah.
Just kind of picking up what Councilmember Ortiz was talking about. I used this example years ago, when U2 had booked a show in downtown at the SAP, and they sold out in 2 minutes, and so they added another show. But if you were downtown, it didn't seem like any other restaurants knew that there was even a sellout, performance that night. We were under-prepared as a city, and so I had the opportunity to walk with John LaFortune through NVIDIA's show, and I was really happy to hear, and maybe you can talk about the work you guys did in advance of the show to talk to restaurant owners, business owners, to be really clear about the impact and the opportunity that was being presented to them.
Specifically with NVIDIA, we did talk about it in our bash. We also have a 60-day calendar event that we talk to people. We sent out the resume with all the details to everybody. But most importantly, what we did is with the city and with the Downtown Association and Team San Jose is walk all around the businesses and let them know that NVIDIA was coming in. And that was the most important thing, is to walk around with them.
So that calendar is available to all of us, right? And so if Councilmember Ortiz, who's close enough to get some of that, that would be a good opportunity for them to be aware and as they're communicating with their small businesses. So making sure that that's a tool that all the city council offices would have would be a good idea, I think. And then on the bash, you've done 2 so far. It's probably a little too early to measure tangible results on that, but how do you see that evolving over time? And sort of what's the point, I guess, ultimately? I don't know. That's for anybody. Matthew, you haven't talked for a while.
It's very unusual, huh? The attendance from one to the other, just on a metric, was about 3 times as high for the second bash. And I think this is one of the best things that has happened in the last year, is that it is a direct tool to communicate with the community, with small business owners, people that are not downtown, for example, because I think you could assume that all of our efforts are focused on downtown, but the more you see, the less true that would be. So the bash is an ongoing way for us to have a cadence of communication. And for example, in the world that I spend most of my time in group business, whether it's Citywide, which is multiple hotels, or self-contained for one hotel, it holds me accountable that I talked at the last bash about the downtown availability calendar. And somebody might ask me, hey, a few months ago you mentioned that you were going to implement this, create it and implement it. Have you done that? With the Citywide master contract, same thing, is it holds us, it doesn't just hold us accountable, but that's one of the positives that it does, is that if we bring something up and talk about something we're about to do, industry pages is another one. Did we follow through on that? And then sometimes really great ideas for us will come from that audience. So they will ask us questions, they'll ask us, we often end up speaking after the event is over to people that sometimes wait to say, hey, I've been, hoping to get on your calendar to talk about this or that. So it gives us an opportunity for all of that.
If I could just add one more thing, thank you, Matthew, we can't underestimate the importance of the networking that is available there amongst the city and the vendors and so forth. At our last bash, we had 10 wineries there, and they hooked up with several different hospitality groups and restaurants and were able to sell their wine at that point. And our next bash, what we're probably going to do is have some restaurants there to show their food and how they can work with us and other individuals around the community. So that's very important also, in my opinion.
So the business has a lot of lingo, like every industry does. And one of the things I think's interesting is when you're talking about the booked room nights, Matthew, you went through some numbers from 23, 24, year over year was up 14%. Were those rooms booked within the portfolio of Team San Jose, or were those hotel rooms no matter where they are in the city?
All of those.
Do you know what I mean? The ones that we help contract.
Those were all groups that we helped contract.
Can you put that into context for my colleagues, what that actually means? Because it doesn't mean that those are the only rooms that were booked in the city of San Jose, right? This is what the business, this organization is driving, not what hotels overall are generating.
Correct. First of all, it's only group. So all of the room nights that Laura spoke about are aside from this. And these groups, it might be a corporate retreat, for example, at the Hayes Mansion. That's 100 rooms for 3 nights and some really nice banquet functions. And it's a real deposit of trust with an individual property when we really help them work on that, because that's only benefiting one hotel in that situation. But every single one of these room nights is a group, represents part of a group that we helped contract. Some of them are years in the making. We can work for 2-3 years for a group sometimes, and sometimes it happens very quickly. People also travel here for other reasons. They may be on a business trip. They may just decide to come for a weekend. None of those room nights are the room nights I'm talking about. It is specifically group contracts.
So like to put it in perspective, in downtown with NVIDIA, you have, in years past, we've always had very kind of congenial relationships between all of the hotels collectively, right? So you're able to book in groups to all of the hotels. And currently, we don't have that same situation. So we had sort of group activity with all hotels but 2 downtown, right?
Well, even the one that I think you're alluding to had.
It's okay to say those names out loud, just like I want the Broadway shows names out loud. It's okay to say the names out loud.
The Westin Hotel had a very small block for NVIDIA, but that took a little bit of arm wrestling. Most of the hotels contributed a very significant block. We were able to get up to 80% of the inventory at most of the downtown properties, which was a big win for NVIDIA, because as they continue to grow and as they continue to push the limits of what we as a city can provide, the amount of hotels is a big pain point for them. So we did a good job helping to mitigate that. We've already put out a save the date for next year to try to do the same thing, but we do have a couple of challenges downtown that end up reflecting bad on everybody, unfortunately.
So I'll just finish with this. I'd love to figure out, maybe in the next time you come back, to put more in perspective that which, when you're talking about the numbers that Team San Jose has sort of driven, but then what is the overall picture of hotels generally? I think you could probably look at TOT maybe
Right.
for that. But just to sort of put it in perspective, the 2 variables in terms of what matters to San Jose in terms of the TOT drivers. What is sort of driven by TSJ and the bookings, and what does the whole, other piece look like in terms of numbers?
Great. We'll do that moving
All right,
forward.
thank you.
Anything else? Okay, you're obviously the expert on this 5-council-member panel. Councilmember Kamei.
Thank you so much. First of all, I want to say thank you to Nancy. I'm really going to miss you a lot. I'm going to miss all the meetings, but I hope that we stay connected because you have been someone who I go to as a thought partner and really with a lot of different ideas, and we've been able to launch one event that I know of that has been very, very popular, and I think that I didn't know much in the beginning, and now I know a lot more. So I want to just publicly thank you, and thank you for all your work in making San Jose better. I also want to say that over the last 2 years being on this committee, I've learned a lot from the team. I didn't realize the difference between booked versus consumed rooms until I started to talk to John. And you know, I think that where we were, and I know that I was very critical in the beginning, but I think that one of the things I find is that over time, you know, I always try to seek to understand, and understanding, it is a whole language. And the lingo and what is and what is not, I think really is important. And I want to say that you've done tremendous work in terms of really bringing San Jose more visibility, and certainly, you know, what happened just a few days ago with NVIDIA is testament to the good work that you have done, and it takes time. It really does. So I applaud you for that. I also wanted to ask a little bit about your growth uptown versus downtown, and kind of similar to the question that Councilmember Ortiz talked about in terms of when I talk to people about Team San Jose, they always think downtown. They always think, oh, downtown, only downtown. But in reality, it's all of San Jose. And so as you've tried to, you know, sort of like bring greater visibility to what you call the growth uptown, as well as downtown, is there some thought of how do you grow other areas of San Jose? Because I think that there's a uniqueness. I mean, in my district, with the Winchester Mystery House and having Santana Row right there, there are lots of opportunities. I see a tremendous growth in that whole area. And I'm just wondering, how do you, you know, like, I'm sure you're doing some work in that area. We just don't know. So I'd like to hear a little bit about, you know, not just downtown. I mean, obviously downtown is critically important, but like, what are you doing to reach out to the Mexican Heritage Plaza, to, you know, the Winchester Mystery House, or Santana Row, or, you know, other areas of our, you mentioned Almaden, right? I'm just curious as to how do you, where does that live, the other sections of San Jose?
We're going to pass this question around. Thank you for the question. It's interesting, you have a new business district along Winchester Boulevard, and I've met with them already. And the marketing we do, I think with Bash and the industry pages, we immediately give them tools to tap into what we do. Again, like you, we have very small teams. In the past, we've reached out to every council district to ask specifically, okay, this is what we're looking for. Can you please help point us in the right direction? I'm hoping that continues, and I'd love to meet with the business districts as I have. That new business district is really interesting. They've got a ton of heart and a ton of great ideas. They're still kind of finding their way in the marketing space, which is interesting, and which we can help them with. I'd like to talk to Matthew, too, about how you're defining a whole new district, if you want to take it.
One of the products that we're working on is, we're calling it a mini-wide. And what that means is the cost structure at the convention center can be difficult for some groups. as far as just the cost of operating. And we all know the cost of operating the building, the maintenance, the utilities, and some groups find that out of reach. So what we're packaging is an uptown Citywide, meaning the DoubleTree Hotel, which is 505 rooms, could be the headquarters property for, let's call it a group of maybe 600 rooms, or a group that needs 600 hotel rooms on their peak nights. So they would have the headquarters at the DoubleTree, and then there are so many surrounding properties that they can get the overflow there. And then the food and beverage the events, food and beverage-wise, would take place at the DoubleTree. This is not going to replace a group at the convention center. This will be a group that we would have lost to another city altogether. So you can imagine the owner, I met with the asset managers up there, and they're very excited about this because this is a whole new genre of business that is not available to them now. So that's one thing that we think will have tremendous effect. And then the more activity that there is up there, that will spur other types of growth. So that's one thing. And then when you mentioned the Winchester Mystery House, we travel often throughout the year. In fact, we have some people. I would be in Boston today if it weren't for this important conversation, trying to bring some pharmaceutical business to San Jose, which would be a completely untapped market for us. But we do have people in Boston, and we always bring a couple of hotel certificates to try to encourage meeting planners to come visit. We always put 2 tickets to the Winchester Mystery House with these certificates. It is one of the most unique, one-of-a-kind locations, and it is very unique to San Jose. So we always tell that story about Sarah Winchester, and the idea is, of course, come see the city, come see the Winchester Mystery House, and then they're close enough to Santana Row that it isn't all about downtown. So those are a couple of things specifically that we do right now.
And
Great.
if I can just jump in real quick with one last piece. Also, from a research standpoint, we're investing in new tools to look at cross-visitation. So we know oftentimes the convention center or something downtown can be a catalyst for the visit, but then Laura's team is always pushing all the great experiences across the destination. So we're looking now to utilize geolocation to help us track and see how are these people dispersed throughout the city, and we'll utilize those insights to help us better track and better attune our efforts to make sure we're getting people not just into San Jose, but through.
Oh, that's great. But now that you mention it, you'll have to let us know what that is, right?
Absolutely.
So, well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I also appreciate, John, you reaching out to me and making sure if there were any questions. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation, really informative, a lot of good questions from my colleagues. I think this is the first time we've seen a report that generated so many questions and comments. So, and you answered them brilliantly, and thank you. It's a delight to have Councilmember Mulcahy here, who's had so much experience with Team San Jose from the beginning days. So thank you all for being here. I'm excited to hear that NVIDIA is coming back because there was some question they might not be coming back next year. So what magic did you...
I feel good they're coming back.
Huh?
We don't have a contract yet. They don't sign contracts till after the event, and then they take vacation, and then we start
Okay,
bothering
but you're
them.
working on them.
Absolutely.
Got it. Wonderful. And I love, Matthew, the downtown availability calendar. I just think that is brilliant to be able to have a convention group call you up and say, where do you have hotel rooms?
Thank you. We're very excited about it. And I did promise all of the hotels that nobody would see it, meaning one hotel to another.
Yeah.
It is only for our eyes.
No, but that's fabulous. That way you can curate the hotels for the number of people. That's fabulous. With that, seeing no other hands raised, let's vote. And Nancy, thank you again. Although you may be up for the next one, I'm not sure. Thank you. Moving on to the next item, which is the Berryessa flea market update.
Good afternoon. Nancy Klein, still, with the Office of Economic Development and Cultural Affairs. And I am here with Nathan Blage and Jessica, who are on the Team San Jose team. No, we're on the Berryessa item now, sorry. Just thinking about the presentation. And I'm really happy to be able to say we're here to give you an update on all the activities that have been related to La Pulga over the last several months, and also want to note the very positive and quite large attendance from the vendors and La Pulga community today. This report will go through a number of activities reports, many of which you, council, had heard about before, and most of which have completed their work. And there has been an ongoing set of information that we've been collaborating with the La Pulga community and vendors very closely. There's a tremendous amount of passion from the vendors for La Pulga, and the Pulga community very much wanting everyone to know that the flea market is very much open and a wonderful opportunity to still bring family and friends to experience just a fun time with friends and family. With that, I'll turn it over to Blage.
Good afternoon, Vice Mayor Foley and committee members. Blage is the Lalich Deputy Director in the Office of Economic Development. I just wanted to give very brief background on the direction that was given to city staff in June of 2021, and that was in a nutshell to support the Berryessa flea market vendors through the process of potential site redevelopment. There are a number of kind of tools and initiatives that were kind of put into place and into motion at that time, and those are listed on this slide. The biggest was really around just vendor engagement and support, something the vendors had felt like had been lacking previous to the council direction. The composition of a vendor transition fund, which Jessica will remind you of at the end of this presentation. The formation of the Flea Market Advisory Group, which is kind of the main place we as staff have done our work over the last kind of year and a half, 2 years. This idea of also exploring what might happen on a 5-acre smaller market as the site is redeveloped. And then economic, cultural, and feasibility studies to go along with the decision-making process. And so we're going to touch on basically each one of those here today in this presentation.
Thank you, Blage. So key to the success of all of those things that you talked about is really outreach and engagement with the flea market business owner community. And so from the early days of this effort, staff worked closely beginning with the Berryessa Flea Market Vendors Association and with the property owner to keep the community updated and seek out their voices and ideas. Some of the tactics included outreach going stall to stall by city staff, using text messaging services, emails always in multiple languages, and also hosting drop-in meetings online. And all of that was super important when it came to setting up the advisory group, getting the word out about upcoming advisory group meetings and resources, or meetings like this one, and completing the research related to the studies that Blage mentioned. And then finally, while not on this slide, is the concept of broader outreach to consumers in our region. So we've heard from the vendor community that some people may not be aware that the flea market is still open and an amazing place to shop and spend time with your family. So our communications team has been working to support marketing efforts, amplifying social media content from the market and from the Vendors Association, including the flea as one of our top destinations for our Shop San Jose Local holiday campaign. Another leg of the support stool is supporting vendors' business goals through access to resources and technical assistance. Last spring, the city launched a program with a nonprofit called Mission Asset Fund. They're an organization that specializes in helping primarily, but not only, immigrant-owned small businesses achieve success. And their goal was really to provide vendor technical assistance in the areas of business planning, credit building, and financial education. And the program also provided access to 0% interest micro loans. It took many, many weeks, probably more than we anticipated, to develop the trust and buy-in to the concept that Mission Asset Fund, as a city contractor, was there to assist and support business owners with financial education and other beneficial resources. And although the MAF contract has officially come to an end with the city, they are really, really committed to staying engaged with the vendors who have engaged with them to date, and there's a couple of data points on the screen around their work. So to support the continuation of the flea market in some form, staff worked with consultants and the vendor community to produce a package of 3 studies: economic and cultural impact, sustainable market operations, and an alternative site assessment. The economic and cultural impact study is all about not just the economic value of the flea market in dollars and cents, but also its cultural importance and community impact. And this information we think is really important for a future investor, developer, or even a philanthropist who might want to join forces and help this effort. Just a few data points are on the screen. Overall, the report really does confirm significant economic value of the market to the city and really to the community. Flea market businesses are real, viable businesses that support families, often across multiple generations, with relatively low barriers to entry. The vendor community already knows this. We know this. Now we have this report that kind of puts it in black and white. One eye-opening data point, I think, is that the market supports over 1,000 jobs directly, and most of those jobs are considered the primary income for the survey respondent. And that would actually make the market one of the city's top 50 employers if you look at it that way. Next, the market operations report was intended to inform stakeholders of potential market models like ownership, financial, and operational factors. It also looks at what makes the existing market tick so successfully. Some main takeaways are shown here. One example is based on the consultant's estimates. The existing market really does show a good business, proving that markets with the right parameters can be good opportunities. But the report also provides a realistic look at challenges that face many markets, especially in California, that are facing similar displacement pressures. And finally, the report provides a brief overview of potential alternative ownership models like nonprofits or land trusts. The good news is there's a number of options worth looking into more deeply as we move forward. With that, Blog A.
And certainly last but not least, we took a look at the alternative sites assessment. So quick recap of the current market. It sits on 65 total acres, 45 of which are used for parking and facilities, 20 for the actual market. There are about 3,600 parking spaces that equate to about 900, not equate to, but in addition to the 3,600 parking spaces, there are about 930 rentable stalls. So 8 alternative locations were studied in this alternative sites assessment, and it was conducted by retail consultant Greensfelder Commercial Real Estate. The sites were assessed based on factors such as size, site accessibility, surrounding demographics, ability to provide parking, and financial feasibility. You can see the list of the 8 locations on the screen. An in-depth explanation of the opportunities and challenges with each of the 8 sites was presented and discussed at the Market Advisory Group meeting in September of 2024. The 3 most viable options, the former Sears building at Eastridge Mall, the Santa Clara County Fairgrounds, and the Singleton landfill, face significant challenges for a potential market on these sites. So quickly, we wanted to just run through each of the kind of 3 most viable sites a little more closely. With respect to the former Sears site at Eastridge, staff did engage the pro bono services of Steinberg Hart Architects to do some preliminary site layouts and cost estimates at the location. They reviewed the opportunity to utilize both the indoors in the former building as well as some of the outdoor surrounding parking lot. And they provided initial cost estimates were mainly around much needed tenant improvements, mostly leveling up fire life safety requirements, which amounted to approximately $10.5 million at kind of a very base level. That significant price tag, coupled with the uncertainty around the current market's closure date and the timing of available funding, also in line with the fact that the owner of that building really wanted to make an arrangement more immediately, really ruled that out as kind of a viable site currently. With respect to the county fairgrounds, transition in the fairgrounds operating personnel and also the county's ownership of that site, with multiple different conversations around redevelopment, kind of have made it very challenging to really pin that down as a viable option. Obviously, there are many variables outside of the city's control that make that a difficult and not necessarily viable conversation at this moment. So the last site, which is potentially the best option to evaluate for a long-term option, is the city's owned Singleton landfill at 850 Singleton Road, kind of close to Highway 101 and Capitol Expressway. And this is where we focused most of our effort. This is really the only site that could host a market comparable in size to the one that currently exists. However, there are significant hurdles to this site. One of them being the large cost associated with the environmental mitigation needed on the site, $3 to $4 million an acre, and the timeline that will take. So at least 3 to 5 years for that environmental mitigation. Additionally, we anticipate the construction costs on this site would likely be significantly higher than on a non-landfill type site. Secondly, there is something called the California Surplus Land Act that the city is required to follow. And in that California Surplus Land Act, the city must prioritize the development of affordable housing on land that it is deemed as surplus. So to this end, we had sought to acquire an exemption to that requirement from the Housing and Community Development Department, something our real estate team has been working on. We've received an initial verbal denial from them on this exemption, but are awaiting their official determination in writing.
Good afternoon. Another component of this update is the status report that is periodically released by the property owners to inform us and the community about the timeline for closure. The latest property owner update indicates that no one-year closure notice will be issued before July 1st, 2025. The master plan development permit and tentative map have not been resubmitted since it was withdrawn in October of 2023. And at the moment, there is no indication of an imminent redevelopment proposal for the site at this time. We also have a component of this update, In response to the rezoning, there were funds that were allocated to support the relocation of the vendors. The Vendor Transition Fund, as you can see on the screen, is composed of a commitment of $5 million from the property owners, as well as $2.5 million from the City of San Jose. The owners have released $500,000 and will release the rest of the money in phases as outlined in the chart above. At this time, 15% of the fund has been allocated and used for the setup of the advisory committee, the studies, and the business transition program that was led by Mission Asset Fund.
So looking forward, what we expect is the next property owner status report to come to us in June of 2025, so a few months away here. We will continue with the evaluation of the Singleton redevelopment potential. Staff anticipates pacing our work around site redevelopment, so both the information that we receive around the current market and also any potential around the Singleton site. This is definitely a marathon and not a sprint, and so we're looking at it in that way. And then future CED committee updates, we anticipate bringing to you wrapped into OEDCA's Business Development Division Annuals Activity Report. And with that, we'll conclude our presentation, and we are here and available to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good report. I just wanted to ask you about Singleton before we go to public comment. 3 to 4 million per acre. How many acres is it?
It's roughly 90 acres. It isn't necessarily true that you'd have to do all at once, but you couldn't do it by twos and threes.
Understand. Okay. Thank you. I was just trying to get a scope of how big. I mean, 3 to 4 million, that's a big number, but didn't know how many times that would be. All right. Thank you. Turning to public comment, we have 26 speaker cards, so I'm going to ask every speaker to limit their presentation to 1 minute. We do have translation. Are we using Wordly? Okay. So to my colleagues who haven't used this before, if they press number 2, you will get the translation in front of you when the speaker comes forward. With that, please call the cards.
Okay, I'm going to call 5 names at a time. You can see the interpretation on the screen above you. I'm going to point just to make sure you see what I'm talking about. I have Jose Wall, Isabel K. Loro, I think, Cayetano, I can't read the last name, so Cayetano, Chava Bustamante, and Alma Jacobo. Come on down.
Good afternoon. My name is Jose Wall. I'm one of the vendors at the flea market. I just want to say thank you so much for you guys' time and opportunity. I'll just make this short. I just want to say the flea market has been around since 1960, has supported thousands of family members throughout their generation of time, and there's still a generation of business continuing over 100 business. This site actually has more than just an iconic feel to San Jose. This is actually known through Truvana, through Facebook, through social media, through San Jose Face Market apps, and many other outlets as Instagram. So when they look in the Google search engine from people traveling from out of town, from out of states, this is one of the top 15 locations through Google suggestion. And so it's actually a known suggestion to be looked at. As a vendor there, I have dealt with customers from Napa, Sacramento, Arizona, Texas, Louisiana.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Cayetano Araujo, soy vendedor de hace 33 años en la Flea Market.
Yo soy Betty. 33 years ago at the Flint Market. I am a member of the Free Market vendors. My question is just for you to ask. What are the chances of them agreeing to relocate us to Singleton? Because we are going through a very drastic economic situation, all sellers. And we would like to know if we have your support for the entire time.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Thank you so much.
Hello, Chava Bustamante.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Hello, Shava.
The rezoning of the San Jose Flea Market 4 years ago marked a critical turning point for hundreds of families who relied on La Pulga as a source of income. The Office of Economic Development was tasked with helping vendors identify alternative sites and to ensure smooth transition. This work is essential, not only for the vendors' economic security, but also for preserving the cultural and communal significance of La Pulga. However, proposed staffing reductions in the OED now threaten this mission. Reduced support risks derailing the efforts to secure a viable alternate site, jeopardizing the stability and livelihoods of hundreds of families who depend on the market. Without adequate staffing and resources, the relocation process may falter, leaving vendors or their families without a reliable economic foundation. We urge the City of San Jose to continue supporting the vendors by maintaining.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
No, earlier I asked for 1 minute because we have so many cards, so many people to speak. Thank you. Next speaker.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Alma. I'm a vendor at the Berryessa Flea Market and member of the advisory group. My family's been a vendor in the flea market for the last 35 years. We do embroidery and silk screen. Thank you, Nancy, and thank you to the CET members for all your support and help. We are here today to make ourselves visible to all the council members. We are in need for your help, to count on your voice and support 400 families who depend on the income made at the flea market for a living, and it's now at severe risk of disappear if we don't take action. According to the studies made to CED, Singleton is the best option to relocate the flea market. This relocation is possible only with your support. Only we can be part of your agenda. And of course, the city's commitment to continue to have our need in your budget.
Thank you. I'll call the next batch of speakers. So we have Chris. I'm not able to read this one. Maybe Bruce or Bree. Isabel, Manuel, and Caesar. So if you're able to introduce yourself by your name, we can keep track of who's spoken already. Thank you.
Good evening, council, or afternoon, council members. Chris Lepe. I've been a longtime supporter and advocate for the flea market, and I'm excited to be here once again with other members of the Berryessa Flea Market Vendors Association and the Community Coalition. I'm as excited and energized today as I was 20 years ago, almost now, in 2007 when this issue first came to the City Council. The issue of La Pulga's future is a uniting force for many San Jose residents and organizations, everyone from representing labor, the business community, racial justice, urban planning, historic preservation. This is an issue of really great significance for many of us. And I know this issue is very important and means a lot to you as well. What we're asking for today is clarity, is resources, is continued commitment and direction of the City of San Jose and OED as it.
Yes. Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Thank.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
If your name has been called, you can come on down and sit in this first row. We have it reserved for the speakers who are waiting.
Mi nombre es Bruno Rivas y quiero agradecerles por su tiempo a todos.
For the speakers who are waiting, me name is Bruno.
Que vinieron en
Gratis or poor. You too. And to the comrades who came to support us. We just want to thank you and let you know that we are not a public burden to the state or the city, and that we would also like to own our own business to continue increasing our income, that of our families, and ourselves. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Buenas tardes. Vicealcaldesa, miembro del comité, miembro. Mi nombre es Manuel Delgado.
Good afternoon, Deputy Mayor, member of the Members Committee. My name is Manuel Delgado. I'm part of the ride-sharing app driver community. Today, I am here in support of the Flea Market Association. Today, I'm here to ask the city to continue supporting small flea markets. For years, they have been a place where whole families enjoy a great day. I ask that there be transparency and clear steps in the relocation process for all sellers. Flea market
Thank you.
vendors
Next
create
speaker,
jobs,
please.
have families, and need to support their own, and are part of the city's economy. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, Vice Mayor and members of the committee. My name is Cesar Palancares, and I'm the lead organizer with Gig Workers Rising here in support of the Vendors Association. For many years, my family and I have visited the iconic place, La Pulga. Some vendors have been there for years, if not decades, creating jobs, paying taxes, and just creating an environment where families from this and other counties like to visit every weekend. We ask you to continue to support vendors at the flea market throughout the process of relocation. There must be transparency, clear steps, so that vendors can prepare accordingly. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and call the next batch of speakers. We have JP, Humberto, Marco, and Nubia. So please go ahead and sit in the reserve seating and come up when your name is called, or in whatever order.
Buenas tardes a todos, muy amables por recibirnos, a todos los compañeros.
Buenas tardes, the Flea's companions. To Nancy, too. Good afternoon, counselors and everyone. All I want to know is if you could commit to reopening the market with us for the progress of our children. We are already old. We can no longer work. We need to give our children an education. The best study and see why America is an opportunity. And thank you for having us.
Thank you.
May
Next
God
speaker,
bless you.
please.
Thank you.
Hola, mi nombre es Tatiana. Cuando escuchen su nombre, por favor, pasen a los asientos.
Hello, my name is Tatiana.
My name is Tatiana, and I'm a community organizer speaking on behalf of the Latina Coalition of Silicon Valley. Through civic engagement, leadership, and development, we offer opportunities for all to grow. The Latina Coalition stands in strong support of protecting and expanding economic opportunities for our communities, particularly those that are top 50 employers of the city. As decision makers, we are all dependent on each other's future, and we are all here in solidarity of the Pulga's future. We urge the city to ensure that existing vendors have affordable and sustainable spaces to continue their business. Latinas in our community, many of those who are small business owners, workers, and consumers at La Pulga, deserve policies that foster their success and not their displacement. We urge this committee to align with the values of equity, economic opportunity, and culture.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Ana Lilia y vengo apoyando a la Asociación de Vendedores de La
Mi
Pulga.
nombre es Ana
Pedimos
Lilia
la
y vengo
colaboración y el
to
apoyo
the Flea
continuo de
Market
la
Vendors
Oficina
Association.
de Desarrollo Económico y Asuntos Culturales. Hay mucho enfoque en el centro de la ciudad y necesitamos la misma
We
energía
ask for the continued collaboration and support of the Office of Economic Development and Cultural Affairs. There's a lot of focus on the city center, and we need the same energy when it comes to the market and other commercial sites. We need to work together to enable the use of the marketplace on the Singleton site. Who in the city can affirm their commitment
Thank you.
and
Next
interest
speaker,
in
please.
relocating the market? Thank you.
We'll go ahead and repeat the names that have been called already. Nubia, Marco, Humberto, JP, Isabel K. So if you want to come down and sit at the reserved seating, I'll call a few more just in case maybe you've changed your mind. Carla, Francisco, Flauso. Please come down, thank you.
Either one of you.
Si han oído su nombre mencionado, pueden venir y sentarse en la primera línea para poder hablar. So, si firmaron la tarjeta para hablar, debieran de venir para comunicar sus pensamientos.
Please.
Hola, buenas tardes. Vicealcaldesa y miembros del comité. Mi nombre es Carla Coyoc, miembro de la Asociación de Vendedores.
Hello, good afternoon to the Deputy Mayor and committee members. My name is Carla Koyak, a member of the Flea Market Vendors Association. I want to thank Nancy and the Office of Economic Development for their support. We are here today, the flea market vendors, to ask them to continue helping us, also so that they give us more promotion. We also ask for clarity on the next steps to achieve a fair relocation. The Sea, which is a tourist place where many come and spend time, so we want to continue having your support. Don't forget us.
Thank you.
We are
Next
here.
speaker, please.
Hola, vicealcaldesa.
Hello, Deputy Mayor.
Y miembros del comité. Mi nombre es Francisco Ayala.
Miembros del Comite.
Miembro de la
Mi nombre es Francisco Ayala. Miembros.
de vendedores del mercado de la pulga. Hemos trabajado en la pulga por familia. Por
Flea
más de
Market
20
Vendors
años.
Association A.
Quiero agradecer a Nancy.
We have worked at La Pulga
y
as a family for over 30
y a la
years.
Oficina de Desarrollo
I want to thank Nancy and the Office of
y Asuntos Internos por
Arroyo
eso,
Económico
por la
y, yes,
presentación y el trabajo
for him,
dedicado, la colaboración con la,
for the
con la
presentation and the
ciudad.
dedicated work.
En estos últimos
Collaboration
años,
with the city,
nunca
in this one.
antes se había visto en el mercado y con nuestros negocios, y por eso estamos realmente
In recent years,
agradecidos.
this has never been seen before in the market and with our businesses.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Thank you. Your time is up.
Ya, se terminó el tiempo, señor.
Next speaker, please.
Come on.
You could give her the card afterwards.
She's already got the
Straight
card.
to
I was just waiting for the name. Hi, I'm Kelly Snyder. I'm a chair of the Parks and Rec Commission, but I'm speaking on my own behalf today. I'm a housing developer and a houser, and I'm also a professional planner and a professor of planning at San Jose State. It's been very interesting hearing the first report and this one. Lots of great information. I'm sorry that this can't be an action item and not an update, because the number one thing the city should do is find a place for a 40-acre public market. Whether you're trying to drive economic development, tourism, neighborhood development, vibrant public spaces, an open public market on city land is the key to all of that. So put this in your priority list, put it in every department's work plan. These vendors deserve a great place for a forever flea market, and I hope that we can find a place for them in San Jose on public space for them to thrive. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll call the remainder of the cards. Susanna, Anastasio, Carla again, Roberto, Neil, Maggie, Santiago, and Monella. So go ahead and sit at the reserved seating and then approach the podium one by one, please.
Afternoon, everyone. My name is Maggie Castellon, and I am one of the advisory board members. As an advisory board member, I am here to report that this project lacks urgency, it lacks transparency, and it lacks a real plan. As an advisory board member, I am here to report also that the advisory board has spoken with all of the committee members. We have proposed solutions, we have shown up, yet our voices are met with silence. or ideas dismissed and without consideration. Advisory boards and meetings are meaningless if they are only served as checkboxes for the city's optics, not real dialogue. This isn't collaboration, it is neglect. As an advisory board member, on behalf of the vendors, we demand accountability, monthly progress reports from the city relocation efforts, clear timelines, and make better use of the advisory board members that you have.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Queremos primero agradecer a la Oficina de Desarrollo Económico que ha tomado el tiempo para
Queremos
hacer los
primero
estudios
agradecer a
necesarios
la
y
Oficina
demostrarle
del
a la
Estado
ciudad que
Económico.
es
2.
un negocio que vale la pena porque pagamos impuestos y además de eso nuestras familias dependen.
Conduct the necessary studies and demonstrate to the city that we are a worthwhile business because we pay taxes.
Que ahora es nuestra familia. Es importante, hemos tenido 60
And on top of that, our families depend on us to continue developing the city, which is now ours, our family.
podamos seguir desarrollándonos económicamente y además porque el tiempo se nos viene encima. Estamos a pocos meses de que
It's important, I don't know, and we would love for you, as members of the council, to commit to us so we can offer us a place where we can continue to develop economically, and also because time is running out. We are a few months away from the flea. The flea owners give us some time to leave. Maybe it will happen, maybe it won't, but it's important for us to start with the next steps so we don't get left behind.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Yes, our income, because we have little time and the development plan is quite large and we don't have the resources, so, have. Thank you, next speaker, please.
Hello, Vice Mayor and committee members. My name is Roberto, President with the Berryessa Flea Market Vendors Association. First, want to thank OED for all the work you guys have done. Special shout out to Nancy, and I'm super bummed that you are retiring, but happy for you. And sad that we won't be able to see this thing through. I know you'll be cheering us on from the sidelines and hopefully integrating into the work that we are doing post-retirement once you're ready. But as you guys can see, there's a lot of work that's been done, but the job is not done, right? The job is not done. We need more clarity in this process. We need commitment, not just from yourselves, but the full council. And we need to drive this thing home. San Jose has been home to the flea market for 65 years, and we want it to be home, not just to the flea market, but we want it to be a market city with everything that the report beforehand mentioned, right? You guys are trying to drive economic factors and attraction.
Thank you. Your time is up. Next speaker, please.
Hola, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Mariela Barragán. El día de hoy vengo a apoyar a la pulga y especialmente a mi tía. Quiero dar las gracias a Nancy y al comité.
Today, I come to support La Pulga, and especially my aunt. This.
Situación. Y quiero pedir especialmente dos cosas. La primera es darle visibilidad a las pulgas.
I want to thank Nancy and the committee for all the support they've given to this situation, and I want to make two special requests. The first is to give visibility to the flea, understanding that there are people who depend on it, and many have spent more than 30 years in that place.
Que tomen esta situación como algo importante porque la pulga es como un patrimonio también de San José. Hay mucha cultura y hay muchas personas, como lo digo.
So I also ask you to respond to them in terms of relocation and to take this situation as something important,
Thank you.
because the
Next
flea
speaker,
is also
please.
like a heritage of San Jose. There is a lot of culture, and there are many people, as I say, who
Hi.
depend on it.
Good
Thank
afternoon,
you so much.
Vice Mayor, Committee. I'm Neil Martin. I'm with Working Partnerships USA. I think we've all heard today about the importance of this institution in terms of how many people's livelihoods depend on it, the cultural significance. But I think we also see that there is a need for like a clearer roadmap. The report, which I think is wonderful, shows that there's a best site for the relocation to happen, but there are clearly, obviously, some big challenges there. So I think what we need is, as other speakers have said, coordination across agencies and devoting staff time to this to really figure out a plan and set up a roadmap with responsible parties and figure it out so that we can figure out a site for this. For what it's worth, I lived in a city for most of my adult life where the flea market was the.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Santiago, and I want to share the importance of the flea market in my life. My family, as well as all others who depend on the market as their main source of income, are families who are determined to put food on the tables of their loved ones and to give their younger generations easier lives. Ever since I was younger, my parents have worked every weekend away from our shop to sell our work. And ever since a couple years ago, I would go with them to help any way I can. As a result, I learned how to interact with others, as well as the importance of hard work and the amazing results it can bring. And I think those values have reflected in my life in many ways. Because of that, I was accepted into a high school of very high prestige, and I learned how to project my voice and many other things that will help me in my years to come. We humbly ask you to keep the relocation of the flea market as a possibility so others my age can have the same privilege as I did. Thank you.
Thank you. It looks like there are no more people sitting in the reserved seating. So we've called quite a few names. Not everyone has spoken. So if you did not hear your name and would like to speak on this item, now would be your time to come on down to the podium.
Si quieren hablar sobre este asunto y no oyeron su nombre, por favor, pueden venir a hablar por un minuto. There's someone coming down.
Hi, my name is Fabio Zapata. I started selling at the flea market about 5 years ago. It has potentially helped me a lot financially wise, and due to that, I was able to help my family. My cousins helped them open a business. All my cousins, 3 of them, helped them open a business. They're entrepreneur now, and I feel when you go flea market, it's a environment for family, friends, and everybody. And also, it's very important to the community. As a small business, I feel we need your support to help us. You're helping small businesses, you're helping families, and I feel like we need that help from you guys. And also young generation, young entrepreneurs, like me, starting a business in a flea market. I never expected myself to start a flea market business. It worked out well. And
Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Buenas tardes, vicealcaldesa,
Buenas
miembros del
tardes.
comité. Mi nombre es
Alcaldesa,
Mario Dávila,
committee members.
miembro de la Asociación de Vendedores de la Pulga por más de 23 años. Quiero agradecer a Nancy y a la Oficina de Desarrollo
My name is Mario Davila, a member of the Flea Market Vendors Association for over 23 years. I want to thank Nancy and the Development Office for this matter, which concerns us as sellers.
en la próxima flea market, que sea un compromiso de la ciudad, de la justa reubicación, para poder seguir trabajando porque nuestras familias dependen de estos negocios y que también aportamos a la economía de la ciudad, lugar de emprendimiento de negocios.
Simply ask the City Council to consider us for the next fly market and let it be a commitment from the city to fair relocation so we can continue working because, well, our families depend on these businesses and we also contribute to the city's economy.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Muy buenas tardes, que Dios les bendiga a todos. Mi nombre es Paola A. Muchas gracias a las personas que nos
Paula,
están apoyando.
AJ.
Le doy gracias a Dios por la oportunidad que me está presentando.
Many thanks to the people who are supporting us this.
La petición que yo tengo es que nos tomen en cuenta, por favor. Creo que ustedes tienen la oportunidad de
I thank God for the opportunity He is giving me to be in front of you, and my request is this: please take us into account.
que corresponden a nosotros como miembros
I think you have the opportunity to sit there and have the power to practically make some decisions, right? Which correspond to us as members of the city.
al negocio de nosotros. Gente que quizás ellos dicen, nosotros queremos ir, que son clientes precisamente de los negocios. Entonces, que nos apoyen en esta situación.
La Pulga is a place where not only we are as sellers, but we also support many people who come to our business, people who maybe they say we want to go, who are clients precisely of the businesses. So this one supports us in this situation.
Thank you. Back to the committee.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone who came to speak on behalf of the flea market. The flea market is a very important business in my heart. My husband had a flea market business many, many years ago, and it helped contribute to our financial success. So you are hardworking. I acknowledge that. I remember every day my husband going out on the weekends to work at the flea market. So I share your thoughts and support for the flea market and know how hard you are working to help take care of your families. So thank you all for being here. Thank you also for the presentation on the status of the flea market and where the current flea market is and possible locations for other relocating our flea market. With that, I'll turn to my colleagues. Councilmember Ortiz.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. First, I also want to start by thanking our OED staff for your hard work, especially the time invested working directly with our flea market vendors. I understand that this is a complex issue, and it's hard to just pick up 500 plus or how many plus vendors and just automatically find a place there. So I want to, let you know that I understand that, and that, it's not a simple thing. Also, I don't know, Jessica, is this your first time here presenting to the, so congratulations, Jessica, someone who started as the business, East San Jose business coordinator and now doing big things. So just wanted to give you your little kudos there. I just, I've met with the I met with the flea market vendors. I've heard what they're saying here today, and I'm concerned with just some of the language in the memo, specifically ones talking about or using the language of pace to work around the site. And I think on page 5 there's language that I think says pausing. That's something that the Vendor Association is very concerned about. Jesus Flores from the Latino Business Foundation is concerned about. Chava, Chris Lepe, who's here, individuals who I've been organizing with for a long time. And so I just, knowing and seeing, right, if we do wait for whenever the family wants to redevelop the site on the current flea market, that would only give us a year. But as we said earlier in the presentation, with the most viable site being Singleton, it would take multiple years to remediate that site. So it could leave our vendors, I guess, high and dry for a while during the time in which we're remediating that site or exploring it, or other solutions. So I just wanted to hear, like, using, these language, pacing with the current site owners or pausing. How are we going to make sure that we are staying on track with the timeline so that there isn't a pause in them being able to operate their businesses?
Councilmember, thank you very much for the question. Want to just make a couple background comments. Part of the genesis of the real challenge here is the first rezoning of the property 14 years ago, I believe it was 14. At that time, very different council, the city did not create any plans for a relocation. At that moment, on that initial rezoning, that was when the time when the city had the most leverage. 4 years ago, as was referenced, we had a zoning, but much less leverage. But the council was able to draw funds and cooperation from the owners. So just want to make sure we know that we're all in a lot bit harder situation based on prior decisions that this council had nothing to do with. Also want to mention that the site, the Singleton site, is extremely difficult. It would have been so great if there was a site that was relatively turnkey. the city has very little land. So other than this site for 40 acres, we don't really have the option. Also need to have a site where the circulation, the traffic, the 1 to 3 to 5 mile radius for customers, as well as being a radius for larger folks. So that is why we've gravitated to Singleton. The challenges with Singleton, and I'll mention, Councilmember, about the notion of pacing and just the real issues that you have, we have. The business development side team isn't the staff that would need to be able to work with the site. It would be real estate. Going through, based on skill set, going to HCD, Housing Community Development, they have told us, verbally, and we'll need it in writing, that we will have to go out to offer the site for affordable housing, which, for a number of reasons, we don't agree that it makes sense to put it out for affordable housing. But that may well be the step that we're asked to go through. That in and of itself takes a fair bit of time. If we were able, and it's not a given, to get to the point where we could pursue remediation, city staff out of Public Works and Environmental Services estimates that the remediation could take anywhere from 3 to 5, more likely between 5 and 7 years. You have to go through 3 state agencies that govern landfills, which is a challenging set of work to undertake. There are nonetheless all of these challenges. We believe there is a potential pathway. It would take a fair bit of time and a fair bit of creativity. So I very much hear and take seriously the concern about transparency. And it's a different issue to walk through all of the steps in development, as you and particularly Councilmembers Casey and Mulcahy work in on a day-to-day basis. So there's a lot that's there. And if there's pacing, it's on the real estate side to make sure that work could be done. And there's also, speaking very directly, a number of other activities that the real estate group is handling. So there's just the reality of that.
So when I hear the word pacing and another word pausing, that tells me that you're not going to be working at the same level of effort. Is that what you mean in this language? Because that's, I think, what people are interpreting.
The very fair question, the biz development side, the bulk of the work is not those staff in business development. To move forward, it would be the staff out of real estate. And part of that set of decisions and work have very long lead times. Is the recognition and the fact. When we have worked with the Vendors Association, we very much agree and understand the value of the market. And we said very directly that the work we were going to do is to analyze what sites are possible, and we really aiming to have this happen, but we can't promise it will happen given limited city land and the difficulty with the characteristics of the sites.
Councilmember, if I could just add, it sounds like what Nancy is describing is that the work moving forward is going to be housed on the real estate division side of OEDCA, a different set of staff. Not that we're necessarily pausing the work, but laying out and setting expectations. The body of work moving forward is going to take some time. Working with the state, if we get the permission, like remediation, she's just laying out the time frame that it would take. But it's just a different set of staff working on moving forward.
Okay, thank you for that. So in theory, like, is this saying that, like, what level of involvement is your department going to have, or OED going to have moving forward?
Thank you. Real estate is in OED. So
Okay.
we have been, the real estate folks have been tracking and engaged at a higher level based on the analysis of the sites themselves. And biz dev's staff will maintain outreach and connection to the vendors. It's not going to be intensive because the work that's happening hopefully can still be on capacity building, like technical assistance directing where services might be had. But the bulk of the get it done work would come out of real estate. And I just want to be transparent that the work that real estate is doing, there will need to be trade-offs.
Okay. I'm just concerned that, you know, a lot of our priorities are being focused to downtown, Super Bowl, World Cup, making sure that, you know, we're a destination place for events, which is all very important, but we can't forget about the economic contributions of the vendors of the flea market. And it kind of just seems like people are like, oh, well, who knows what's going to happen? We're going to reprioritize what our staff are going to do. And I'm just, that's why I'm concerned about it. So I want to accept the report, but I also want to reference it to the entire city council because I think my colleagues should be able to provide input on this. And then I may work with the Brown Act to introduce a memo to the Rules Committee because I think that we may need to change direction to staff because it shouldn't just be about, you know, whether it's one site. The end goal needs to be about helping the flea markets move past what the flea market is right now, helping the flea market vendors move past what their current condition is to whatever their future is. And I don't want us to be like, oh, we found a site, but that's 7 or 8 years away, but there you go, we've completed what the directive was. No, we gotta help them get off their feet regardless of what their next steps are, whether that's the Singleton site or whether that's helping them get in brick and mortars, whether that's looking at local school districts who are closing down schools and seeing if we could put events on those campuses. We just got to be more creative, and I'd like to review what the initial feedback was by the council, and so that was my motion. Thank you.
Rosalind, can I ask you a question about cross-referencing? That doesn't typically happen here unless it's called out for ahead of time and it's agendized to go to council. So is there any reason that it needs to go to rules first, or we can send it directly? Okay. Okay. Thank you. I wasn't sure. I've never had that happen before. Okay. Councilmember Casey.
Wait, what was the answer from Rosalind? Does it have to go to rules?
No.
Okay. We didn't hear that part.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate the report, appreciate the work. I'm going to try to be constructive, but I was on the Planning Commission when this came before us in 2021, and the level of anger it created in me was hard to keep down. The 14-year-ago council, whomever dropped the ball on that, it's an embarrassment. We shouldn't even be here. The value that the flea market brings on a cultural and economic level is immeasurable, and I don't know that we even needed those studies to understand how valuable this community is. We dropped the ball. It's incumbent upon us to do right here and try to fix this, however, and not necessarily however much it costs, but in a thoughtful and constructive way. But to Peter's point, I'd hate to see us take our foot off the gas in terms of figuring out a resolution to the situation. There needs to be a thriving flea market, if not the same size as it is now, something comparable to it. That's just an editorial comment, but secondarily, I noticed that $1 million has been spent already out of the funds that were available, and that seems excessive. 340-something thousand plus for the studies that were done, and I think $1 million or a couple $100,000 for, I don't know what it was for, but how mindful are we being of the money that's left there, and is this amount that's been spent reasonable? It seems excessive to me.
So, Councilmember, the money that's been spent is a combination of money received from the property owners as well as some portion of the money that was initially set aside from the city. Everything that has been spent was vetted through the advisory group and approved through the advisory group before the studies were initiated, before the technical assistance with MAF. So we have been kind of lockstep with the advisory group receiving approval to spend that money, as was the commitment that was made when that money was allocated. And our intention, so right now, kind of what sits, technically only the city's kind of commitment sits in our reserve fund. The additional funding that will be given from the property owners, not given until the one-year closure notice is provided, and then again when the closure actually happens. But the sum total of that, kind of that will be available, is the 6.4 million. And the intention is to continue to work hand in hand with the advisory group to come up with the recommendations of how that money will be allocated.
Okay. Going back to the state's permission to use the Singleton site, that's not going to happen. We're not confident that the state's going to give up that site for anything other than housing, are we?
We believe there is a path forward there, either through looking at some of the exemptions that are in the Surplus Land Act law, which, to demystify, I wasn't trying to hide anything there. There is an exemption that would allow a relatively small amount of affordable land housing to be put on the land, which again isn't going to be affordable for a super long time, if ever, and then proceed on the remainder of the land. The other potentially is legislation that would say in this particular interest that it doesn't make sense, environmental justice issues, financing issues, it's the value of the market. So we believe that is possible to explore. And then I did just want to mention that part of the reason for the studies is we had early conversations with the folks at Sobrato, the prior Knight lead, Packard, who all said that it would be very helpful when there were requests for philanthropy to have the studies and show as they approve with their board systems. And then that part, it made sense to have that professional work done.
Okay, thank you, that's helpful. Just one last editorial comment. I mean, a city, San Jose without a big, thriving flea market, I think it'd be a big loss, and I can't imagine not having them thriving in our city. So anything we can do on the council as a city to make sure that they're up and running, if not as large, but something comparable, I'm just 100% behind that notion. So just wanted one last editorial comment. Thank you for your help.
Thank you. Councilmember Kamei.
Thank you. Le quiero dar las gracias a todos los que vinieron hoy para dar su sentimientos sobre este tema. Y necesitamos trabajar juntos para traer soluciones para los pequeños negocios de la pulga. Y yo, de mi parte, voy a hacer todo lo posible para ayudarles. It's clear to me that some of the individuals who came to speak today didn't fully understand where you are and what it means. It seems to me that however things are getting communicated needs a bit more clarity. And the gentleman who talked about a clear roadmap, I think is correct. So I don't know how you would want to do it, but between the time from now until it ever go, whenever it is going to go to council, it would be really helpful, whether it's working with the committee or working with others in the community who have come today, to have a more deeper understanding of everything. What are the options, really? I mean, I'd like to know a little bit more about the entitlement. The property owner has not submitted their plans. How much time, and I guess Chris is up there, how much time is left? Because if the only thing you know is that people are not going to be given notice before July 1st, 2025, well, that's in a few months, right? And so, if their timeline, meaning the property owners, are such that, hey, is it 2 years? Is it, what is it, right? because I think that 1 year, given that some of the solutions would probably take 3 to 5 years, maybe 7 years, I think that it would be appropriate to know, okay, what are these other things that are happening in tandem, and whether or not they can plan on something that's a year away, 2 years away, 3 years away. It's only fair, I think, to be able to have those conversations. And, you know, like if you get to a point where we don't know, right? I think we have to be a little bit more transparent. And if we do have that roadmap, then we can say, well, you know, HCD, they're not going to let us do that. But if we go this other route, then I'm kind of a visual person, so if we go this other route, that the possibilities of doing legislation, well, that takes 2 years. I don't know. You know, I just think that people's livelihoods and lives, you know, need some certainty, right? You have an answer for us? Because from a development point of view, this started 14 years ago, and we could have done something different, but we're here, and what can we do?
Thank you, Councilmember Chris Burton, Director of Planning, Building, Code Enforcement. So the property was zoned, I believe it was 2007, so 18 years ago potentially, and then rezoned again 4 years ago. There was a number of subsequent actions that were included in that rezoning that had to occur, including the master plan development permit and the subsequent permits that came after, many of which have not sort of either been finished processing or gone into effect. We did receive an application from the property owner under SB 330, under the builder's remedy sort of avenue, that was not completed on. So again, a lot of the land use entitlements kind of sit right now waiting for further action by the applicant.
How much time do they have?
Well, but the zoning it runs with the land, right? So
Okay.
the city council has rezoned with a site-specific rezoning. It's not effectuated at this point, but that is in place. There's not a time condition where it would necessarily expire.
So he can come in at any time since it's already rezoned.
Correct.
That's unfortunate. And in terms of, you know, looking at the alternatives, you know, I think that because Singleton was the only one who was sort of viable, I don't know, you know, is there a way, since there are 90 acres, is there a way, and I don't know, you know, in terms of location or whatever, but in terms of, and I know that the real estate people are the right people to take a look at this, is there a way to be able to know sooner rather than later whether or not it's really viable? Because I think that if it's not, then why are we putting more effort into it? You know, it's very expensive to do remediation.
Thank you for the question, Council Member. Couple different things and an opportunity to clarify. The remediation for residential, which is why it's so expensive, is $3 to $4 million an acre. The remediation anticipated for the flea market or other industrial uses would be 2.5-ish.
Okay, so half.
So just to clarify the difference between residential and industrial. So there are other flea markets in the state that currently operate in a very similar way to ours. I know of one developer who is active in our city or has been active in our city who has 14 flea markets. 3 of them were done on landfills that are very similar to ours, household waste landfills, not industrial landfills. So to answer the question, is it possible? We think so. The other options are very challenging, just to be straight, like doing some consideration for brick and mortar.
Yeah, and I understand that, but I guess what I'm saying is that if this is the option that is the most viable, right, and we're gonna, you know, sort of like keep it on the industrial side, what are the steps that are gonna be necessary? Because the thing is that if you don't do things on tandem, time is not our friend. It just flies away like crazy, right? So I just think that if it is, and this is what is possible, then we ought to really like say, hey, you know what, we don't have that much time. And given our current circumstance with the developer, that they at any time, at any moment can say, oop, we got the financing, we're gonna move forward, and here's your, are they required 1 year?
Yeah.
1 year, okay. That's not a lot of time. That's not a lot of time. So I think that if we're committed, and I think that, you know, we will find out when it goes to the city council, but if we're committed, then we ought to say, okay, this is the road forward, this is the path we have chosen, and these are the things we have to sort of tick off to say go, no go, right? Because I think that it is really not fair to kind of hold things out for people who can't, who are not able to make decisions, proper decisions on their livelihood, right? So I think that we need to find a way, you know, between now and, you know, when it goes to the city council, to give greater clarity, whether it's through the committee, through the people that are here today, whatever, as to what is a path forward. And if there's no path forward, whether it be economic or whatever, we need to be very clear about that too, because I think that stringing people along is not fair. It's not. So I just think that if we're gonna do it, let's do it, and the council can decide, and be clear as to what are the things that need to get done, whether it's going to Sacramento, going whatever, doing whatever it is that we need to do if we are gonna do it. Thank you.
Councilmember Mulcahy.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. I can remember back in 2005 running for mayor, and Dave Cortese as a candidate talking about needing to have an international market, and he wanted it at the fairgrounds. You know, so I just think about, we've been talking about how I think he sort of probably knew something at that particular time that we would be here at some point. How much do we know at this point, and maybe Nancy, I'd look at you just from real estate's perspective, and how much do we know about the business case, the business model, right? Because this is an absolute economic engine for the city. Sales tax wise, our vendors pay rent, it's a parking, you know, parking revenue generator. How much do we know about the business model?
So the business model, which again proved out by the work from Greensfelder, from a larger community economic perspective, incredibly valuable. If you're asking specifically from the city, not very much is realized in sales tax. The parking revenue and the low barrier land cost, because the bums own this outright and have for many years. The business case for having a large piece of land with a lot of parking revenue and stall revenue, super solid. But did
you say super solid?
Solid, by be able to have a market if you don't have much of a rent or any rent payment, and you're able to collect parking revenues to then infuse back into the market, or that's also your profit. So that is the experience currently at La Pulga.
Got it.
So that's why having a city property, or a no-cost option anyway, is so critical to make the model work.
Great. And acreage?
40 acres, as Kelly mentioned, is about what they have now, and you could scale down to some amount based on economics and reality or availability.
As long as you can park it.
As long as you can park it.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you for the good discussion on this issue. I think it's an important one, but I would caution everyone to look at the finances of Singleton knowing what budgetary situation we're in right now. And likely we will not, as a council, I don't know, make a budgetary decision when this comes to council as we're looking at the budget right now. So I'll just put that out there. I think it's an important discussion to have at the council level. And I guess I was the only one on this council 4 years ago when we moved into this phase. Looking at the development and how long the development has taken this time, or to this point, we can't be certain that it won't take the same amount of time in the future, but we can't count on that either. We have to move forward and see what can be done to keep the flea market going. With that, let's vote. Thank you. The next item, and I would ask, we have 2 items, and they are fairly large items. I would ask my council colleagues I would ask the presentation to be brief and succinct in both cases, and that we keep our comments on point.
Thank you, Chair Foley and
I didn't say that.
committee
I just
members.
said on point.
Chris Burton, Director of Planning, Building, Code Enforcement, joined by Sylvia Doe, Division Manager within our planning team, and Alex Powell, Chief of Staff. So this is...
Excuse me, we're still conducting our meeting, so if you could quietly exit the building, that would be appreciated so we could hear our speakers down here. Thank you.
We're going into our 4th year of reporting to CED on our development services process improvements and our ongoing work to measure our performance and really understand our operations. In the purpose of being brief, for our new committee members and as a reminder, as a central tenet to the way we manage and operate PBCE, we're really focused on providing access to information for our customers so they can see how the department is performing and thereby make informed decisions on how they work with us through their permit process. This started somewhere in the region of 42 dashboards. We're down at about 35. But it really gives us that insight. This is operational data that we use on a 2-week basis to really understand how things are going, but then also be able to adjust for conditions as we see them coming. Before I hand it over to Sylvia and Alex, just to give you a deep dive on just a couple of the key elements that were noted in the memo, I just wanted to mention we did have 1 new dashboard. So most of these dashboards are operational. If you look down at the bottom left-hand side, you'll see 3 planning dashboards. One that we're going to talk about in the next presentation that really measures our work plan for citywide planning and policy work. One, which is the work of the Housing Catalyst team, which is a cross-functional team across our city service area that focuses on addressing the issues of the housing crisis. But the new one, which we've just added, is our housing production dashboard. This is straight out of our integrated permitting system that delivers all the information that anybody would need to know that was trying to understand housing production in the city of San Jose. So just to give you just a very quick preview of what's in here, it's tracking all housing production through entitlement, through our permitting process, through completion. It gives you different levels of affordability. This is obviously all tied to our housing production goals in the housing element. There are a number of different dashboards in here that you can cycle through on how we're making progress. And there's maps included on where we've entitled units, where we've permitted units. And then some specific pieces around some key areas like ADUs, so you can kind of see the density of projects that are getting submitted, as well as processing timelines and SB9 lot splits, which is obviously an area that we're really focused on. So a lot of really great information in there. It's linked through the memo, and it's obviously on our customer service charter webpage, so we'd certainly encourage you to take a look there. And with that, I will hand it to Sylvia, or Alex.
Thanks, Chris. Alex Powell. One of the first improvements, in the demo video is just going to jump right in. So is a permit fee estimator. You can see how easy it is to use or the simple questions that we provide for users. The two phases, this one demoing ADU is part of the first phase. That gives customers really simple set of questions and an easy way to get to a quick estimate of what their permit fees and construction taxes or city taxes overall are. This uses past data, which in a sense makes this an evergreen tool. It constantly updates itself based on most recent information. They can look at similar permits, and also, it's hard to see in this view, but you can actually scroll over to the right and see more information about these ADUs to find something that looks most appropriate for your project, to find fees that are similar to your project, so you have a better sense. So as I was about to mention, there's been two phases of this. First was the ADUs launched in September of last year, and then the second phase, which was commercial tenant improvements, launched December 18th of 2024. So the future phases, we're now working on new multifamily construction, a much larger sort of project scope or typology that we'll be sort of taking a different approach on. We hope to launch later this spring. And then really the final phase, which is single family additions and alterations. The next grouping of improvements that we focus on and we have been reporting to this committee is the November 1st, 2023 Rules Committee memo. We've reported on 7 previous improvements. We'll be talking about 2 more today that are related to one another, with 3 more open items afterwards. So the 2 for today is evaluating multiple rounds of review for process improvements, and then the plan review phone support versus official responses. These 2 items are related in the way that we actually interact in the review process. So quickly to go through them. So for the first item, evaluating the multiple rounds of review, there was 5 main reasons that we found for why multiple rounds of reviews are caused. This is based on a random sampling of permits that we looked through, the comments, and then also the responses that we saw going back and forth between the city and the applicants, and then also interviewing or following up with key project team members to identify exactly what was going on. So those 5 were: 1, incomplete submittals at the onset of the project; 2, poor quality plan sets; 3, significant design changes that happened through the plan review; 3, additional comments found after the first round of review; and then 5 is just generally complex projects require more rounds of review. So some of these items we have already taken action on, and some of them are going to be in progress or ongoing items. The first, for incomplete submittals, really we've done an improvement to our website to consolidate information to make sure applicants are successful the first time around. If we cut down on the number of reviews, the overall work level does go down for us, and we're able to get through more permits. So this will actually be part of the biannual audit status report that goes to council tomorrow. One of the things we have done is consolidate our website to reduce the amount of pages applicants need to check. For poor quality plan sets, this is usually what happens is we must go back and forth with applicants many times on the rounds of review and comments. We instituted a new policy that for our plan reviewers, if they reach a 3rd round of reviews and it still seems like they're not going to be able to address the comments, we actually require a meeting with the applicants to go through those questions to make sure that they understand what we're sending and to make sure that they know what they need to correct. Significant design changes, this came up in a couple of the permits that we checked in on, and this is a difficult item to address. Design's going to change if the customer or the applicant has new ideas, so this is a tough one for us to address. Number 4, the additional comments found after the first review. This one is with the city. It's something that we might miss initially. If the project changes, of course, there may be new comments, but there were some instances of where we would miss comments initially. Maybe it's because we asked for more information, we found them. This seems, after interviewing some of our staff internally, that this was probably most correlated with the experience of staff. What you see on the right-hand side is actually a little different view. This is for our planning division as opposed to the building side of it, the building permitting. On the planning end, they've actually seen a long-term trend of decreasing the average number of review cycles over the last couple of years. When we dive into this a bit deeper, it does seem like most strongly correlated with the tenure of staff. Our staff are a bit more experienced. They know what issues to look for. They know what the applicant may resubmit and how to address those issues before they even might find them in a formal submittal. So this is one of the dashboards that relate to this. The final item on complex projects, this is a difficult one also to address. It's likely with big projects there's going to be a lot of comments, but what we do proactively, and particularly with our affordable housing, is that we actually set up project schedules. So while there might be a lot of round of reviews, we create that clear expectation with applicants of when we're submitting comments back to them. So even though there might be more rounds of review, if we're both meeting our project timelines, it's more likely to be successful. So the second part to this was plan review phone support, and the full sort of recommendation on this one was if there was the ability to provide phone support as opposed to formal responsive comments. In our in our review, it seems like comments are going to be something that we're always going to have to require. We want to document exactly what needs to change. The additional sort of conference call that could be required for each round of review could add 1 to 3 hours for each project, particularly with like a frontline plan reviewer with their supervisor. And so this is something that we're going to continue to focus on just for projects that require that third round of review, as opposed to each individual review cycle, only for those problematic projects to really focus staff time so they're not just focused on a smaller number of projects. So that's a quick review of some of the recent process improvements. We'll now go into what have been some of the trends in our permitting data.
Good afternoon, Sylvia Doe with Planning, Building, and Code Enforcement, where I oversee Planning's Permit Center team. And so for the next few slides, I'm going to be highlighting 2 improvements that have been made to the customer service charter dashboards. And I'm going to be using the Planning's Permit Center team as an example of how we've applied that. So first off, the first improvement we've made is adding staffing indicators. So as you can see on the screen here on the right side with the box shaded in red, we've added a staffing indicator to indicate how many staff are assigned to deliver certain development services. So again, as an example with Planning's Permit Center team, we have 7 planners processing administrative planning applications. Also, as noted in the summary box there, Planning's Permit Center team comprises of 5 different customer service charter dashboards. So while this screen just captures how many planning administrative permits that we process in any given week, the team also processes reviewing building permits for conformance with zoning regulations, and we also support public information services as well. So this just gives you a sense of the 7 staff members assigned to one given work, they're just not doing one thing. They're balancing every day, doing various different permit application processing, as well as providing public information services. So the intent of the staffing indicator is just to give or paint a bigger picture of the variety of work that any team or staff member does. The second improvement that we've implemented for the customer service charter dashboard is customer-centric metrics. So for example, all of the data that we collect on a weekly basis, we've now incorporated it into different planning, building, and code enforcement websites. So for example, if someone wants to schedule a building inspection, now they can see on the web page that an average inspection will take 3 days from the time they schedule the appointment. And for example, as well, if someone wants to email us with planning or zoning general questions, it would take the first response a little bit more than 1 day, and then a little bit more than 2 days to resolve their question overall. And then lastly, with regards to just giving a snapshot or bigger picture of how the economy has affected permit activity over the past 6 months or 1 year, you can see here for, again, the Planning Division's Permit Center team, 2 of the core services we provide are reviewing building permits for consistency with the zoning regulations, as well as reviewing administrative planning applications. So over the past year, there's been an 8% decrease in building permits that require zoning conformance, as well as about a 7% decrease in the number of planning applications that require administrative review. And what this all is kind of telling the story of is not only is permit activity declining slightly, but the scope of work also is changing. So compared to about last year or so, there were much more new construction permits being applied for, whereas now much of the building permits and planning application review is mostly tenant improvements or alterations to existing buildings. And so as a cost recovery organization, this decrease in permit activity directly impacts our fee revenue. As a result, we've modified our operations to focus more on fee-based work. in processing permits, and we've also been pre-screening our application appointments so that our finite number of planners spend their time on cost recovery work rather than supporting customers who may book our application appointment line for general inquiries. So this is just an example of the trade-offs we have to make regularly to balance our fee-based organization versus providing public information services and supporting customers with pre-application services.
And finally, similar measures for the building permitting process also show similar declines. So as Chris mentioned at the beginning, we track these numbers both for operational information for us to see how we're doing, but also because it gives us that general indication of the market. What each of these diagrams show is that actually the level of applications that are coming in and also those that are being issued in the gray lines, both at the top and the bottom respectively. And then those teal bars represent sort of what that backlog is or what we need to be working on. Taking a step back, of course, what this is showing is that we've actually seen a general decrease over the last 6 months compared to the time before, the last time we presented to this committee. Taking a step back, looking at just the calendar year of 2024, we actually saw an increase in the total number of permits compared to before the pandemic. This was a positive sign, but what's happened is that the average valuation of the permits, i.e., how much construction is actually taking place, has actually gone down by 27%. So that dramatic decrease, now paired with what we're seeing as a more recent trend that permit activity overall is going down, means that there's kind of this double impact of both total valuation and now the quantity is both decreasing. So both of these sort of provide this indication of what that trend is and that slowdown of the overall market and what we're seeing for our permit process.
So that's a lot of information. I'll let you digest it, but we're available for questions as necessary.
Thank you, Chris, Sylvia, and Alex. Thank you for that presentation. There's a lot of information. I don't see any colleagues. I see no one in the audience, so I'm turning to my colleagues. I don't see anyone with questions, so I have one. It was mentioned that after 3 rounds, that's when you reach out and schedule a meeting. Why 3? Why not 2?
At the second round, so the first round can be, really level setting with what is required as part of the application. Maybe they missed something. Maybe there's something else that we need to see. It's difficult at that second round to say, hey, this is, we'll say that that you don't have the ability to bring this back on track. By the third round, that's where we're actually getting a clear indication that there's some communication gap. It's almost like thinking about the first round is almost like a fatal flaw. Are you missing something that we haven't seen? That second round is saying, you got us everything at this point. You've given us everything. Here's really the full set of comments. And if you still haven't addressed it afterwards, after that complete amount of applications, then that's when we realize we need to talk to the applicants.
Okay, so over time through your process, you've realized really it's after 3 that you need to have a one-on-one.
Correct, and it doesn't preclude a conversation from happening earlier. It's that we just require it at the third.
Sure, I understand. Okay, thank you. That helps me understand that a little bit. Seeing no other hands, would someone like to make a motion to accept the report? Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Let's vote.
Can you do a verbal vote? The computer just shut down.
Can I just do all in favor?
Yes. Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Okay, now we have the next item, which is probably the bigger item.
It is the bigger item. So again, Chris Burton, Director of Planning, Building, Code Enforcement, joined by our Citywide leadership team, Jared Ferguson, Martina Davis, and Ruth Cueto. So this is a really good precursor conversation to the budget conversation. Obviously, on last Tuesday's March message discussion, embedded in the March message is a considerable amount of policy work that will impact our ability to deliver on all the things that we're doing within our citywide work plan. So we do this report twice a year, just to kind of give you an update of where that work plan is and how we're balancing priorities. This year will be a little different, right? Because there's a significant add that will push us well over capacity, which either means things go a lot slower and take a lot longer, or we have to go through a process of prioritization and really decide what's critical work that we need to move forward first. So we're going to dive into that a little bit. This won't be the last time we're talking about this. There'll be more opportunities coming up.
All right. Thanks, Chris. So first, just a quick overview of our citywide team. So our citywide planning group We're the long-range portion of the planning division within the department. So we have teams working on a variety of topics. So a team focused on maintenance and updating our general plan. They process private general plan amendments as well. We have a team focused on housing policy and implementing our housing element work. We have a team focused on maintaining our zoning ordinance and implementing other policies related to that work. We have a team that works on our urban village and station area planning. And then throughout the teams, we focus also on our data analytics for the department. So Chris shared our new dashboard on housing production. We also do work around our general plan annual report and 5-year forecast. We have a team that works on other special projects, so related to planning work, special policies outside of our normal work. And then we also house the destination home planner that's responsible for reviewing 100% affordable housing entitlements. So we have 18 staff plus our deputy director, and we currently have 1 vacancy to do this work. So kind of going back to our last update, first update in the fiscal year, you know, as we're thinking about our work into the future, we're really thinking through the adoption of our next housing element, so January 2031, and backtracking from that work, thinking what are the major initiatives and steps to get us to that. We, you know, went through a long, arduous process to get our 6th cycle housing element done, and, you know, we're subject to penalties for being, you know, late in that process, and so we really want to make sure that we provide ample time to complete that work. And there's also some precursor work that we have to do in order to get ourselves ready to do the work for the next housing element. And so we're really focused on the 4 initiatives here and thinking how our work revolves around those. So right now, you know, we're very focused on implementing the 6th cycle housing element and completing all the work associated with that we're required to do. And then kind of next up, or kind of concurrently, this is kind of a major change from our last update. Initially, we had planned to start working on our tri-elements update. So that was updating our safety element, that's part of our general plan, our open space element, and then the new environmental justice element. As we started to get into our housing element work for the current cycle and sort of thinking ahead to the 7th cycle housing element work, we really found the need that we're going to have to start the 4-year review as soon as possible to try to facilitate that work. And so in order to accommodate that, switching that tri-element work with the 4-year review is kind of a key change that we're making in our work plan that we'll talk more about soon in this presentation. And so getting into the work plan itself a bit, you know, in the last update we shared with the committee and council, we've really divided our work into 2 categories now. So first is state mandated work. So this is work that's really required of us by either state law or that we've committed to through our housing element. Or it could be other things, you know, response to litigation. And then the other body of work, city priorities. So these are other work items that may have been directed by council for us to work on. And then there's a lot of other ongoing work we do, monitoring state laws and legislation, working with our IGR team, and then other data and analytics work that we have to do. And so I'll pass it to Martina now.
Okay, so what does this look like? This is a high-level breakdown of the citywide planning's workload by fiscal year. So what we do is we calculate the hours, the productive, or I like to call them project hours, we have across the team. So that's the time we have to work on projects, taking applications, sick time, administrative work, other, you know, non-specifically project work like training or development, et cetera. And then we calculate the hours required to complete all of the projects on our work plan. Jared mentioned mandatory and city priority breakdown, right? So the state mandated items you'll see here in the pink. So this does represent the bulk of our work. And breaking that down further, you can see we are overprescribed, right? So this fiscal year through this June, we are at 116% capacity. And then into the next fiscal year, so June 2025 through June 2026, we already anticipate ourselves fully committed to our workload. So this does not take into account any new items added. And let's take a look at what that might look like. First thing is, as we're overprescribed, we do anticipate some of the work we have now is going to start sliding into next fiscal year. Example I'll give is the staff member who was working on the Five Wounds Urban Village Plan left the city back in the fall. So while we're working on that, we had anticipated finishing up our portion of that plan this spring, but it looks like that's going to be we'll be working on that into the summer. And then the other major change to the workload that we see upcoming is that, as Chris mentioned, the March budget message included a large number of new policy items for this team to work on. And you can see, adding those would put us significantly over capacity, so there will need to be a conversation around trade-offs. Stopping, slowing, or moving items around. Another item I will mention is that yellow box toward the bottom. We don't know what's coming from the state, but based on past years, we're anticipating continuing to get new mandates that this team has to address, and I'll note none of that is funded by the state. And with that, I'll pass it to Ruth.
Okay. So this last quarter, as we started policy work on 2 housing element programs, evaluating the urban village planning process and small multifamily housing, we realized that in order to accomplish that work, we may need to modify GP policies and strategies, and we will need to increase residential capacity beyond what we have planned for in the general plan. Both of these items would require a general plan 4-year review. Therefore, we need to accelerate the work of the general plan 4-year review to be able to implement the 6-cycle housing element and prepare for the 7-cycle housing element. We're proposing a very limited scope for this 3rd general plan 4-year review to ensure we complete the work in a timely manner. Updating the residential capacity, which is the main focus of this work, will take significant environmental review, staff resources, and additional funding. In order to achieve that, staff is proposing shifting the work plan as shown here. One is to pause the Coyote Corridor study, and the second is to combine the Saratoga CEQA with the 4-year review CEQA, which will delay the adoption of the Saratoga Urban Village Plan.
Another new potential large body of work for this team is the transit-oriented communities compliance. Those of you who were on the commission last fall may remember the update around this. It's a policy adopted by the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, and they are tying conformance to the policy to accessing transportation funding moving forward. So I'll point out the OBAG funding program. They're going to tie compliance to the policy to that. We've received $148 million in transportation funding through that since 2012. Everything from complete streets to pavement maintenance to planning work to smart city improvements gets funded through OBAG. So what does compliance mean? For purposes of today, I'm going to focus on what impacts this team's workload, which is the minimum commercial office and residential densities within a half a mile of our rail stations. And believe it or not, when you count up all of the light rail and Caltrain stations in San Jose, there is 54 total areas that we have to look at potentially upzoning. So a lot of work. Now, I have good news. It's not all doom and gloom today. Between when we put the slide together and now, on Friday afternoon, I received a phone call from MTC saying congratulations. They had put out a grant opportunity in the fall. Cities could receive up to $1.2 million for this planning work. We put in an application and it has been approved. They told us they were going to do the final approvals this week, but they let us know that we can consider this approved for San Jose. The city would need to accept it, and this does also have some workload implications. Right now, where we would recommend would be pausing our SB 1333 rezonings, so our special projects team could focus on this TOC work, but more conversations around this would come through the budget process.
So going into a little more detail on our projects and capacity, this slide shows the list of projects from the current fiscal year. The projects in the pink area are those that are in the state mandated category, and the gray area are those that are city priorities. So we continue to make progress this year. These are the projects we have completed or plan to complete before July at the start of the new fiscal year. So we completed our annual 5-year forecast work. In October, the City Council adopted the Pleasant Hills Golf Course Guiding Principles. We did work on an MTC, PDA grant, Policy 6-4 updates. We plan to finish work around the super graphic sign code. We're working to complete an SB9 expansion that's in the housing element. In December, the council adopted changes to adopt a new overlay in our neighborhood business districts to allow for housing. In November, we completed additional work in our zoning ordinance around emergency shelters required for the housing element. Of course, in December, we completed a major work item, which was our ministerial infill approval ordinance, which was also housing element work. We've done some pre-work around the tri-element before we made the decision around shifting that to accommodate the 4-year review. And then we have some work upcoming to council soon around the airport land use and our response to that. And so going into the next fiscal year, starting in July, without accounting for kind of the spillover projects that Martina was talking about, we estimate that we're already starting out at 101% capacity. We also have new work items to consider that we've been mentioning. We have to evaluate how those will fit into our work plan and what work items may need to be put on hold or delayed in order to accommodate this new work. So some of that new work, as Martina was mentioning, how the TOC policy compliance work fits in, and then also evaluating those items from the mayor's budget message. And so we'll need additional time to review those items, and we'll be providing cost estimates and trade-offs through the upcoming budget process. However, initially we've identified several work items that we're proposing to put on hold or delay. And so these are just kind of some of the proposed items at this point, and is meant as a starting point of the conversation through the budget process. Even with these proposed items on hold or delay, it does not fully get us to the 100% manageable workload. So we'll need to evaluate and make other trade-offs in terms of our capacity and workload. Pass it to Ruth.
Okay, so next steps for the team, as Jared mentioned, we're working through the various planning-related proposals from the mayor's budget message, developing the scope of work and identifying total cost to implement those work plan items. And that work is going to help us frame the conversation with council during the budget process on prioritization and trade-offs of work underway and any new work that may come through that budget process. We will also return to City Council for approval of the MTC TOC grant. And lastly, staff is working on the scope of work for the general plan 4-year review and plans to bring that to City Council for approval in the spring. And with that, we are done. Questions?
No members of the public and no council colleagues with their hands raised. Oh, Councilmember Kamei.
You know I was going to say something, right? I'd like to know how those who, the projects that were going to be deferred, how were they selected?
So right now it's really just a case of sort of looking at those things that represent the highest risk if we don't get them done sooner rather than later. The biggest risk out there right now is that come January of 2031, which seems like a really long way away, but it really isn't, is that we are not ready with a completed housing element, and we reopen the door on builders' remedy projects, which have wreaked havoc from a land use perspective on us. So we know we have to do that, right? And to get there, we know this last one took us a little over 2.5 years to prepare, right? So that puts us into 28. We're going to have to do an EIR for the general plan, which is going to bring us back another couple of years on that. And then I've got to get into a policy conversation ahead of that. So that's priority number one, is get us ready for that process, because not only does it set up our next housing element, it allows us to deliver on this one. On top of that, there are a number of key state mandates that we have to meet, right? And so that's the key priorities. What is the work that we have to get done now? And then it's a balancing based on the staff that we have available and the time available to kind of plug it in. As you look at that chart, the dotted line is 100% of capacity. And so as more stuff comes in above it, I can either spend less hours on each project, in which case they all take much longer, or I can start moving the boxes around. And so it's really just a balancing of kind of what staff we have available, as well as what funding we have available. So when we talk about major policy projects, if there's any consultant or CEQA work, that money's getting pulled out of Fund 239, which is the general plan update fee. And so again, all the work associated with the 4-year review, there's probably $1 million in addition to all the staff time that goes with that, right, over the 2-3 years. And so we're trying to sort of preserve capacity both from a staff side and a non-personal financing side, so we can balance those priorities. So that's how we're kind of putting those things together. Ultimately, it's council's decision, right? That's why we're going to bring this through the budget process. You know, we can't do everything all at once. If you want us to try, like I said, it'll just take us longer. So there's going to have to be a conversation around trade-offs and priorities.
Yeah. I guess I was surprised to see Saratoga Urban Village because it was thought that the Saratoga Urban Village CEQA would be done with the general plan review. So, so I was surprised to see that, you know, and, you know, I don't.
Sorry, I just want to be clear. So the recommendation would be to do the CEQA sort of
first?
commensurate with the general plan for your update. So the urban village plan will continue to move on its current path, right? But then the plan was to then do the CEQA afterwards. So rather than doing that CEQA as a discrete item, we would just wrap it into the EIR that we need to do for the general plan update.
I see. Okay, well, thank you. Well, I'd like to move acceptance of the semi-annual status report on citywide planning activities.
Thank you. I just have one question regarding the TOC work that MTC requires. Can we get an exemption on some of those parcels? Are we in discussion with them about limiting the scope? Because that's a lot of work for us, and we know they're not, all of those are not going to be developed.
Yeah, MTC staff, we've been working with them for actually several years on this, and so far they have been very great in acknowledging, you know, kind of San Jose's unique position as a very, very suburban city, but has a lot of the stations and our unique challenges. So, yeah, the goal with that $1.2 million, it wouldn't actually even cover all 54 stations, and we were very upfront about that in our grant application. The way we actually structured the application is to have kind of the first half of it pay us to analyze what our best path forward is, knowing that we're not going to just blanket do, you know, 50 units to the acre and a half mile around a transit station in the middle of nowhere, right? And so then that would kind of be the first half of the work in the grant, and then as part of that we would identify the key items, you know, what's our best path to get the most bang for our buck essentially, and then it would fund us doing that work. So in short, yes, there is definitely an acknowledgement from, at least on the staff level, MTC staff, that, you know, we're in a unique position and they are giving us a lot of flexibility. They've also talked about giving us, you know, kind of flexibility on timing. If we're moving toward progress, they will acknowledge that. So, so far, so good. No, knock on wood.
Okay. Clearly, we're going to have to make some decisions on priorities in the next couple of months as we look at the budget and your workload. Because every time we add something to your workload, we're not taking something away, and physically you just don't have the man or woman power to get it done. That's it. Anyone else have any questions? I see no hands, so let's vote. Thank you. Motion carries. I see no one in the audience for public comment, so this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.